What is going on, everybody? Julio here. In today's lesson, you're going to learn how to build a responsive food delivery service website using HTML and CSS. So stay tuned for the project overview coming up next. Alright, so the project that we are going to be building on today is Grover, and it's based off a design on uihot.com. Keep in mind that some of the designs that they do have are going to be free, but most of them you do need a membership. And you're probably going to see me create more of their designs in future projects as well. Another thing to keep in mind is that these images are going to be copywritten by them. So I suggest that if you plan on using this layout for a personal project, make sure that you use your own images. That being said, let's quickly go over here what we have. So we have the standard navigation with a search bar here, then the 2-column layout. Here we have some cards with a really nice hover effect. And then here, as we keep moving down, we still have the same standard layout. And then the footer. So now I'll just showcase the responsiveness. And if we make this even smaller, you'll notice that everything is just going to adapt until we get till about the mobile view here. Like so. And then for the mobile navigation, it's again pretty standard, kind of like the Bootstrap navigation, except that we are not going to be using Bootstrap, we're just going to be using HTML and CSS. So if you guys find this video useful and you want to see more videos like this one, make sure you hit the like button, let me know down in the comments down below, and subscribe if you still haven't. Now, let's jump right into it. Alright, so as usual, for those of you that want to follow along with me, make sure that you grab the asset files from the link in the description below. That's going to contain everything you need to follow along that you see right here. So let's quickly go over the files. Here, the index.html, basically importing the icons, as well as linking to the style sheet, and then towards the end to the JavaScript file. So here you can see comments for each individual section. If we move over to the styles.css, you can see that I'm already importing the fonts. And I have set up a basic reset as well as some base styles. So you're going to get all this as well. And then the JavaScript portion is going to be empty. We're going to worry about that later when we actually get to that portion. One other thing that I do want to mention is that this design and the assets that you see here, they're owned by UiHut. So you can't use them unless it's for personal use. Feel free to use the layout and just change the images, but the images themselves, you can't use them. As long as it's not for like commercial use or like some sort of personal use for a business or something like that. So let me just quickly set this up right here. Just stretch it to the side so that I can have the browser and the editor side by side, just like so. So we're going to start with the header, and I'm going to open up the header element, and then I'm going to apply an ID of header. Then inside of here, we are going to have the navigation itself. And before I actually keep going, what I'll do is just open up this project. Here, the completed one. So as you can see, it's a bit broken here, but that's because I'm zooming in so much. So what I'm going to do is just leave it at 125. So this is how it will normally look. But yeah, I'm just going to keep it there on the side so that we can use it as a reference throughout the entire building process. So as far as the navigation, I'm going to use the nav element, and I'm going to apply a class of navbar as well as a class of container. The container class here is going to limit how wide this particular element is going to stretch to. As far as the logo, I'm going to use an anchor tag that has the class of logo. I'm going to point this back to the index.html. And then for the content of the logo, I'm going to be using an image. And this image is going to have the class of logo image, like so. Then we will go inside of the assets folder, images folder, and then we are going to find the logo, which is Grover logo.svg. And for the alt here, we can just say Grover Grover's logo, like so. Then underneath of here, I'm going to add a button. So this is going to be the button that's going to open the mobile navigation. And the reason why I'm doing it here is because we are going to be using flex wrap. So we have to place it after this. So here the button is going to have the class of menu toggler. And I guess we can just give this a type as well. So type here, we can just make it button. Then here we are going to have two different icons. So this is going to be for the X as well as the hamburger. So the first icon is going to have the class of RI, menu, then line. I'm also going to add some additional classes, toggle icon, as well as open menu icon. Going to duplicate this down below, and now I'm going to make some changes. So this one, we can change it from menu to close, and then here, open to close, like so. So now that we have the icons, we can move down here, and then we can add an additional div. So this div is going to be the div that is going to hold the navigation links that we have here, which is a list as well as the search bar. So what we can do here is just apply a class of collapsible menu. And in here, we are going to have a UL that has the class of list, LI that has the class of list item, and then anchor tag that has the class of list link. We can call this menu. And now that we have the base for each item here, we can just copy it, paste it down below. And now all we have to do is just simply change the text inside of them. So the third one is going to be for service. And we actually need one more. And this one is going to be shop. So now we are going to go underneath of this closing tag for the UL, and we are going to add an additional div. This div is going to be the container for the search box. So we're just going to call it that. So search box, like so. And here I'm going to have a form, and this form is going to have the class of search form. So as far as the action, it's not really going anywhere, so we can just leave it empty for now. Then I'm going to use the span, and I'm going to apply a class of form icon, as well as a class of search icon. Inside of the span, I'm going to actually have an SVG, which is going to be for this icon that we have right here. So I'm going to be including it as well with the starter files. So I'm just going to grab it and copy it, and you guys can do the same. So this is going to be right here for the search icon. Then the other icon that we will use is going to be for this basket or bag. But for the time being, we don't need to do anything else. We are going to go underneath of this closing span tag. We are going to use the input element, and we are going to apply the class of search input, like so. Then we are going to add a placeholder. This placeholder will simply just say search. Then we are going to have a button here. This button is going to be for this basket. And the button is going to have the class of form icon, as well as a class of cart icon. Or maybe I should just call it bag. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter. And I guess we can just do the same thing here for the type. We can just do button. Like so. So inside of here, it's going to be the same deal. So we are going to grab the other SVG. And then we can just go ahead and drop it in here. like so. And that's pretty much everything that we need here for this header navigation area. So for the next step, let's go inside of the CSS file so that we can style this and make it look better. So as I also mentioned, I'm going to include the basic reset as well as the base styles within the starter files, just because I feel like I repeat the same thing every single tutorial. So this time it just saves a little bit more time. And don't worry though, I'm going to go over what I write here anyways. So here I'm just selecting everything, including the before and after pseudo elements. I'm resetting the margins and paddings and setting the box sizing to border box. And that's just going to make sizing your elements a lot easier since stuff like paddings and borders are going to be calculated inside of the element as opposed to outside of it and adding an extra width and height. Here we define some custom properties for the fonts as well as colors. Then here I like to use rem units just because they're better overall for responsive design. So I use 10 pixels, which is going to make the math in rem a lot simpler. And then I turn it into percentages, and that's just going to help the page scale a lot better when you use the zoom here. Then for the base font size here on the body, I'm doing 1.4 rem. That's going to be equal to 14 pixels. And then some other general styles here. Then for the UL, I'm just getting rid of the bullet points, some general styles for the anchor tags, as well as images. This is going to make working with images a lot simpler. So this way, the image itself is not going to grow larger than the parent. Same here for the inputs that we are going to be using. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So let's go ahead and work on the header. And something that I should have done a while ago is just collapse this sidebar just so that we get some more room to work with. But yeah, as I mentioned, let's work on the header. So inside of the comment here, I'm going to select the header element, which we gave an ID to. And then here, I'm just going to add a padding top to create some separation. And here I'm going to do 4 rem, which is going to be 40 pixels. Then underneath, I'm going to select the container class, and I'm going to apply a margin 0 in auto. Then I'm going to add a padding. So this padding top and bottom is going to be 0. Then on the left and right, it will be 1.2 rem. So that's just going to give us some separation here on the sides. And then the margin here, the auto just means that later on when it has enough room, it's going to center this container in the middle of the page. So what I'll do now is just select the nav bar. And this is going to get a display of flex. Then I want to align my items to the center. And then I'm going to justify the content to be spaced between, just so that we get some separation between the items. Obviously, this is not the correct one, so space between, like so. You're not going to see much happening right now. And this is where the magic is going to happen. Well, in a little bit. But now we are going to do flex of wrap. And now, as you can see, we get the space between here. And this moves down to the next line, which is exactly what we want. Then I'm going to add a little bit of padding top and bottom. So for this, I'm going to use the shorthand of padding block. And that's definitely the wrong one. So padding block, like so. And I'm going to do 0.8 rem. Then I'm going to go underneath and I'm going to style up the logo a little bit. So logo image. And this is going to get a min width right here. And I'm going to make it 15.5 rem. Then I'm going to add a margin right. I guess we could have just done that on the logo itself, but I mean, we're already here. It's not going to make that much of a difference. So let's just do a margin right here. And this, we can just do 10 rem. Like so. So that's just going to add some spacing here on the side, on the right side of the image. Later on, let's say that you make the screen way too small. So this right here, the icons are not going to basically touch the image. The next thing that I'm going to do now is target the menu toggler. This is going to get a width of 5.6 rem, then a height, which is going to be 4 rem, and then I'm going to add a border as well, 1 pixel solid. And this is going to be an RGBA. So the first value is going to be 0, 0, 0, and that's going to give us a black color. And then for the alpha, we can just do 0.1, like so. Then the next thing that I want to do here is add a small border radius, and then a line height of 1. And finally, the position is going to be relative. So we still have both icons. Ideally, we only want to see one at a time, but we are going to be doing that shortly. The position of relative here is because we are going to be positioning the icons themselves with positioning of absolute. So let's take care of that right now. So toggle icon, we can do a font size here of 2.6 rem to make it larger. The color, we can just do the body font color that we defined. And I guess we don't really need to do that because we already added it to the body itself. So it's going to wait. Oh, so no. So that's because we have to actually inherit it instead. And I think I did this over here. For some reason, it's not inheriting it from the parent. So I guess we'll just tell it. So here we can just say body font color like so. Yeah, so now we are going to do the position of absolute. Then the top position here is going to be 50% because we want to center this icon in the middle of the parent container. We will do 50% to the left, and then we have to do transform translate negative 50%. So now this is going to push it straight in the middle as opposed to from the edge. And then we will do the same thing for the Y. And now it's perfectly aligned in the middle. So we are also going to be applying a transition here when we switch between icons. So the transition is going to be on the opacity. So let's take care of that. And it's going to be over 0.25 seconds. So now let's select the close menu icon individually. And here I'm going to set the opacity to 0. This way we can just hide it from view. Technically still there, but we just can't see it. Then here for the open menu icon, we are going to be adding a transition delay like so, and it's going to be over 0.25 seconds. So this is going to give us some time between the switch is made. Like I said, we are just adding some general styles that we need for now for this particular icon. We won't see them in action until we actually get to the JavaScript portion where we create the click event. So underneath of here, I'm going to now select the show menu class. This is a class that we haven't used yet. It's a class that we are going to be applying through JavaScript. And now when this class is present, we can select the close menu icon, and then we can just turn the opacity back on. And then we are going to add a transition delay here as well, which is going to be the same of 0.25 seconds. So we have to do the same exact thing for the open icon. And didn't select it. So open menu icon. And what we are going to do now is switch this to 0 because if the X is currently visible, we don't want to see the hamburger menu. And then for the transition delay, we are going to just say none, like so. So now that that's out of the way, well, in fact, let me test that out and show you guys how this is going to work. So let me just grab this and let's say that I'm going to apply it here. So now if I apply this class, notice how the icon is being switched. And that's exactly what we are going to be achieving when we get to the JavaScript portion. So moving down, now I'm going to select the collapsible menu, which is going to be the container for all the items that you see right here. So collapsible menu. And here we can do a width of 100%, like so. Well, you're not going to see much of a change there. But now we can go ahead and do a display of flex. Align items to the center so that we can position this in the center. And then we can do a justify content of center as well, like so. Technically, since we are not going to be using a fixed width, you could just get rid of this if you wanted to, but I'm just going to leave it in as it is. So I'm also going to make the max height here 0, but for the time being, I still want to see what we are going to be doing. So I'm not going to add it in just yet. So here I'm going to change, well, first, just do it underneath here. So flex direction and make it a column. So now it sits like this. And now I can just go ahead and say that the max height is going to be 0. But as you can see right there, that's causing some issue. Well, that's because it should be the max height, like so. So that's still going to cause an issue here because you can still see the content. So here, what you have to do is use an overflow of hidden. And that's going to hide all the overflow. But as I mentioned here, we are going to still work on this. So we still want to see it. So I'm going to comment out that portion for now, and we can revisit it later on when we're ready to add the JavaScript that's going to toggle this navigation. Since we are going to be transitioning the max height, we are going to add a transition for that as well so that we can get that really nice fluid animation up and down like you see there. So we can say max height, and we can do this over 0.35 seconds like so. Now I'm going to select the list. The list is going to have a display of flex. And the same deal here, the flex direction is going to be of column, because when we make it a flex container, it just defaults to row. And then we can either do align items here of center, or we can just move down to the list item itself and then apply a text align of center. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm going to select the list item that is specifically inside the collapsible menu. So collapsible menu, list item. Now I can do a text align here of center. And I'm also going to add some margin top and bottom as well as left and right. So the margin top and bottom is going to be 1.2 rem and then 1.6 rem left and right. Then I'm going to style the list links themselves. So I'm going to select them, list link. And the first thing that I'm going to do here is give this a display of inline block like so. And that's just going to allow us to move this element. Well, not necessarily move it, but if you wanted to add, let's say, margin top and bottom, as well as some padding top and bottom and things like that, then having the features of the block element here are going to be useful. However, we don't want to make it a complete block element, so this is why we do the inline block element instead. So for the font size here, well, I already have 14 pixels, so I think I'm just going to leave it as it is. What I will do is give this a font weight. So this is going to be 500. And it's going to make it slightly bolder. The line height is going to be 1.6 rem. Then for the padding, we can do 0.8 rem top and bottom, 0 left and right. Now for the color itself, we can do something like dark color, lighter. And let me double check. So yeah, they're completely different. So that's exactly, well, wait, let me go back here. The lighter one, let's see. Yeah, so that's exactly the color that we want. And the body here just has the body font color. But back to this, we are also going to be adding a hover effect. So if we go back, you see that it changes the color to this reddish color. So I'm going to add a transition here as well. This transition is going to be on the color property over 25.25 seconds. Then what I'm going to do here is select the links on hover. So list link, unhover, and then I'm going to do the same thing here on focus as well. So focus is technically when you click on them. And here I'm just going to be changing the color. So this is going to be for the accent color, like so. And if you notice here, we also have one that is selected by default, and that's because we need an additional class here. So we can just go to the first one and we can add an additional class of current link, like so. So now right here, we can just do this and say current link. And then we can just copy this color and paste it in here. And now it shows up. So the next thing that I'm going to be doing now is styling the search bar that we have here. And to do this, I'm going to select the search box. And I'm going to add a margin top for additional separation, which is going to be 0.8 rem. Then I'm going to select the search form itself. And I'm going to give this a position of relative, since we are going to have the icons with position of absolute inside of it. And the first icon that we are going to style is going to be the form icon. The position here is going to be absolute, top 50%. And then we can do transform, translate Y, negative 50% to make sure that it's perfectly aligned in the middle. Then as far as the line height here, I'm going to get rid of it altogether. So you can see it now moves down a little bit. And then I can just select the search icon. And I'm only going to be pushing this 2 rem to the left, like so. The next thing that I'm going to do now is select the search input. And I'm going to give this a width that is going to be 28.8 rem. The height is going to be 4.8 rem. Then I'm going to give this a padding. So this padding is going to be 1.2 rem to the top, 6 rem to the right, 1.2 to the right, to the bottom, and then 4.4 to the left, like so. Then under here, I'm also going to be adding a background color. And this background color is going to be the light color. So obviously it's already just like matching the color that's in the background, but I still decided to just specify that I want a color on it. So let's go ahead now and add a box shadow. So the box shadow, so here we are going to have 0 for the X value. Then here we are going to add 2 rem just to offset it a little bit on the Y, and then 5 rem here for the blur. And then as far as the color, we will use an RGBA because we want to use transparency. And that's a little bit too much compared to how it is here. So we are going to make this even lighter. So we will do 0.04, like so. So now you get like more of a subtle effect. I'm also going to add a small border radius here of 0.8 rem. Then I'm going to now target the placeholder, because if you see when we focus inside of it, here, you see that the placeholder just fades out. So it's a little nice animation there. So search input. Now we can just target the placeholder pseudo class here. And what I want to do now is, let me go ahead and add a font weight of 500 here to make it darker. And then let's do a line height of, well, what's the line height on the body? So let me just double check. So that's 1.5 here. Let me just make it slightly smaller at 1.4. Then what I want to do is set the color. It's going to be the dark color. And finally, I'm going to add the transition. So the transition is going to be over, let's just say all, 2.5 seconds, ease in, out. So if we go check that out. Wait, so it's actually not going away. Oh, that's because I have to make sure that I hide it first. So again, let's select this. And we can now say that on focus like so. And we're missing the extra dot here. Well, column, I should say. So now we can say that the opacity here is going to be 0. So now if we focus inside of it, notice how it just fades out. And yeah, so let's see what's next. So next, let's style the cart icon. And here we can just, well, this is not a pseudo class. I'm pretty sure this is a pseudo element. So let me actually just check that out just to make sure. So right here, placeholder CSS, yes, a pseudo element. For some reason, I said pseudo class, but I was pretty sure that this was a pseudo element. But anyways, back to this. Now let's go ahead and select the cart icon. And what we are going to do here is give it a right position of 2 rem. And now I'm going to select the path. So if we go back to the SVG, we have the cart icon right here. I can't even find it. So right here. And then here we have this path. And we can actually manipulate things like colors and things like that through CSS. So here, cart icon. And then I want to select the path, the element here that has the path class inside of it, which is this class that has right here. And what I'm going to do here is just add a transition. So transition all, and then it's going to be over 0.25 seconds. Now, when I select the cart icon, and I said that when it's being hovered, I want to change the path. Well, the color, I should say. We will also do this on focus. And we mostly just do focus here because of, let's say somebody's using tab on their keyboard to navigate the page. So it's going to highlight it as opposed to them just hovering it. And if we go back here, you see that the color here is the fill. So that's exactly what we have to target to change the color. So the fill here is going to be the accent color. So if we go ahead and hover over it, notice how it changes. It doesn't look quite right, but that's because we still have to target that specific portion at the top. And that's going to be this one right here. That's still going to be pretty simple though. So for example, down here, let me just copy this since it's going to be exactly almost the same. Not exactly, I should say. But here, the path that also has a class of no fill. And yeah, so here, as opposed to the fill, what I want to do is change the stroke. So here for the fill, well, we can just change the stroke here. And then we can say fill none. So now if we hover over it, everything looks exactly how we wanted it to look. So another thing that we have here is this bubble here with the number of items in the cart. And to create that, we are going to be using pseudo elements. So for that, I'm going to go underneath here and I'm going to select the cart icon. And this is going to be the before pseudo element. Let's make sure we specify the content property to an empty string so that the element shows up. And then here we can just go ahead and apply a position of absolute, starting top position that is going to be 2 pixels. Then here to the left, we can do negative 1.6 rem. Now I'm going to apply a width. The width is going to be 2 pixels. Then the height, we can do 2.8 rem. And then for the background color, we can just do F2, F2, F2. So right now that's going to show up right there. So the next item, actually I'm going to make this slightly smaller. Yeah, that's more like it. So the next pseudo element is going to be the bubble. And that one is going to be quite busy, styles wise. So to get started with that one, it's going to be the same thing, card icon, except that we are going to target the after pseudo element. Then here we are going to add D2 inside of the content. And then we are going to specify a position of absolute as well. And then we can just go ahead and say that the top starting position is going to be negative 2.6 rem. Then for the right, we can do negative 2.4 rem as well. Then the width is going to be 2.8 rem. The height is going to be 2.8 rem as well. And let me just scroll this down so that we have more room to work with. Then I can say that the background color is going to be the accent, should be the accent, not the dark color. So accent color, like so. And the border radius is going to be 50%. Then what I'm going to do is go ahead and add the box shadow. And this box shadow is going to have the following values. So negative 0.6 rem for the X, then 0.9 rem for the Y, 2.4 rem for the blur, and then negative 0.6 rem for the spread. Then we basically are going to have the NRGBA based off this accent color. So I'm just going to start with black for now, and I'm going to change the values to 238, here 67, and then 67 here as well, and then 0.68 for the alpha. Then underneath, I'm also going to apply a font weight here of 600 just to make the text slightly bolder. And then I'm going to give this a display of flex, align items to the center, and justify content to the center as well so that I can center the text here in the middle. And might as well give this a color as well since we didn't, which is going to be white. We have a variable for that, so that's going to be the light color. Just like so. So the only thing left now is to make this functional by using some JavaScript. And remember that we turned off some styles here. So let's turn them back on. And now we get the default behavior. When we click it, nothing happens. So let's go ahead and take care of that. So within the app.js, we are going to start by defining a few variables. So that's going to be a constant that is going to be menu toggler. And here I want to store the value of the menu toggler. So document.query selector. And then in here, we can just pass in an ID or the class name or even a tag. Since we used a class, we are going to target it by class name. And then I need 3 of them, so I'm going to duplicate it down below. And then this one I can change to navbar. And then the last one is going to be for the collapsible menu. We also have to change the name of the variables. So this one I'll call navbar, and this one collapsible menu. So the next step is to add an event listener to this menu toggler so that when we click it, it's going to show the navigation. So menu toggler, add event listener, that is going to be a click. And then here we can just add in an arrow function like so. And inside of here, I want to target the navbar and I want to toggle the class list of show menu. If you remember correctly, the show menu class is what we added before. And then I said that we would add it through JavaScript on click. So show menu like so. So now if we click this, it should have no issues switching the icons, and it doesn't. So the next step is to actually show the navigation items themselves. So to do that, we are going to have a conditional, and we are also going to have an else case. So the conditional here, I'm just going to check whether the navbar contains the class list of show menu. And if it does, we want to do something with this. So what we want to do is basically grab the max height of the collapsible menu, and we want to apply it on click. And for this, we can just use the scroll height property. So to do so, all we have to do is just say collapsible menu, style, and then max height is going to equal the collapsible menu's scroll height, like so. And then we just want to add some concatenation here, px. We can also use template literals, but I don't think it's that big of a deal here since we are only going to concatenate this one small thing. So now if I go ahead and try that out, it didn't work. Let me just double check. Oh, that's because of the overflow. So what we want to do, wait, so let me just double check. So get elements. Oh, yeah, so this should have worked because even if I clicked it, it should have shown a little bit, except for the rest of the overflow. So here, this is supposed to be style, like so. So there we go. So this is working, but it's not showing everything completely, as you can see right there. We basically had to click it multiple times for this to show. So the default behavior that I wanted to incorporate here in the else is that when we click this back, the max height is going to go back to 0 and the overflow is going to be hidden. So here we can just say that this portion will go back to 0 pixels. And then what we want to target now is going to be the overflow. And we are going to change this back to hidden, like so. So there, it just hides it. Well, but not completely, because like I said, we are having some issues here, and I can think of something right away. So right here, we added this, but in reality, it's just after we basically have the entire height set, it's pushing it up, and then it's centering it. So we have to get rid of this. I'm not even exactly sure why I added it in. But now if I add it in, you see that it starts from the place that is supposed to start to begin with, like so. So now, as you can see, this is loading quite fast. So if we compare it to the original, notice how there's like a little bit of a delay. and then we get the shadow underneath, which is not something that we are getting here. So what we can do is add a set timeout function here. So set timeout. And what we are going to do here, well, as I said, is just set a function. And in here, what we are going to be doing, well, we also have to specify the time, which is going to be in milliseconds. So here I'm doing 300. And then here, I just want to manipulate the overflow. Like so. And then here I can just say overflow is going to be visible. So if we go ahead and try that out, notice how everything now looks just fine. We have the slight delay right there. For example, if I made this even bigger, so like 3 seconds. Well, that just breaks it even more. But that's because I'm clicking it too fast before it actually happens. So as you can see there, so I'll try that again. Wait for it, and now the overflow is visible. But yeah, we just need it to be slightly smaller, like so. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this menu. So the next step is going to be, let's see, working on the hero section. So let's get right to it. So for the hero section, we are just going to go back inside of the index.html, find the comment, and here we are going to get started by using a section element that has the class of hero, and then inside of it, we are going to have a div that has the class of hero container, as well as the reusable container class that we had from before. So this hero container class is only going to be used for certain styles that I want to apply to this particular element without having to target this particular div. Well, this particular container class, I should say. And this is also going to be a grid container, so I'm going to add in a class for that, which is going to be dgrid for display grid. And then in here, we want to group together some things. So starting with the text and then the images separately for later on, just like you see right here. So the first group is going to be for the text. So text content group. And we are going to have another div in here. So this one is going to be the wrapper for the tagline. Like so. And let's make sure that I spell that correctly. And in here, I'm going to have an h3. This h3 is going to have the class of tagline. Then I can just add in some text, more than faster, like so. Then I'm going to have an image as well. This image is going to have the class of strawberry image. And it's going to be inside of the assets folder, images folder, and it's going to have the class, not the class, but the name of strawberry SVG. Here we can just say a strawberry. And that's going to be it for the tagline. So the next thing is going to be adding in the main heading. So we are going to use an H1 that has the class of title that will have general title styles and then a separate class of main title. And here, as opposed to just typing everything, I'm going to copy it from my reference and I'm going to include all the text here as well. And as you can see here, we also have the span with the accent color class. So that's just going to make it slightly different here. It's going to make this color. Underneath of the H1, I'm going to have a p tag, and this p tag is going to have the class of text content paragraph. And sometimes I know it can be annoying just like coming up with class names. Sometimes it can be difficult. Some other times, depending on the project, it's actually quite easy. And then I'm just going to do the same thing with the text, like so. Then underneath of the p tag here, what I'm going to do, let me just bring this down to the next line so that it looks cleaner. And here I'm going to add another div, and this one is going to be for the button group that we have here. So this wrapper is going to have the class of button group, like so. And then in here, I'm going to have an anchor tag. This anchor tag is going to have a class of button, as well as the class of button normal. Then for the text, this one is just going to say order now. And then underneath, we are going to use the button element, apply the class of button, as well as a class of button transparent, like so. And then in here, we are just simply going to have an image. This image is going to be inside the images folder, and then it will have the name of button play. And then we can just say play button. And for the class, let's just call this play icon image. And that's looking good so far. So the next thing that I'm going to do is exit this div for the text content. And we are going to add another wrapper div. This one is going to be for the image. So we are going to call this one image content group. Again, an image, and this image is going to have the class of, actually, we don't really need to add any class for this. Since it's just an image, it's going to be pretty straightforward to select if we have to. So instead, I'm just going to go inside of the assets folder, images folder, and the image that I want to find is going to be the hero image. For the alt, we can just say chef holding up fruit. Well, actually, those are vegetables. Well, he has fruit technically, so let's just say vegetables and fruit. Should be vegetables, like so. And yeah, that's pretty much everything that we need for the hero. And already it kind of looks all right. Obviously, we still have to add some styles to it to make it look better. But yeah, let's quickly go inside of the styles.css and let's work on this. So the first thing that we are going to do is select the hero here. And we are going to create some additional separation by adding a padding on the top. And here we are going to do 6 rem. We will do 0 left and right. And then we will do slightly smaller 5 rem on the bottom. Then I'm going to select the dgrid class. And I'm going to apply a display of grid here. Now this is going to be a reusable class. So let me just grab this, delete it from here, and I'm actually going to move it all the way up here. And let me just add a comment. So let me just say reusable classes. This way, it's just going to be a lot simpler. If we want to modify some of the reusable classes later on, we can just group them together and then just find them very easily. So the next thing that I want to do now is select my text content group. And I want to text the line here to the center, like so. Now I'm going to select the tagline wrapper. And this is going to have a background color, which is going to be F, and then DE, then CE, and then finally C, like so. Then I'm going to apply a border radius. So the border radius is going to be, let's just do 2 rem. Maybe make it slightly bigger. That looks slightly better. Here, I'm also going to make this a display of inline flex. And then I'm going to align the items to the center, like so. Then I'm going to add a margin bottom. Should be margin bottom, not mask border, margin bottom. And this is going to be 2 rem to create some additional separation here. And for the width here, I can just say width. And let's see. So I can just say fit content. And something else that I want to do is add some padding. So the padding, let's do 1.2 rem top and bottom and 1.6 rem left and right. So it's starting to take shape right there. The other thing that I want to do is now go underneath and then select the tagline itself. And this one is going to have a font weight of 500. Then what I'm going to do is add a line height here of 1.6 rem. Then I'm also going to add the color here. And it's going to be the accent color, like so. And that's pretty much it for this. So next, I'm going to select the strawberry image. And the width here is going to be 2.6 rem. Then for the height, I'm going to set it to 2.4. And I want to add some additional separation. So for the margin here, top and bottom, I'm going to do 0 and then 0.8 left and right. Just like so. The next thing that we are going to style now is going to be the title. So title. Let me just check something. Oh, so actually this one's slightly smaller. So let me just go ahead and add a font size here. Font size of 1.4 rem. And that looks better right there. Obviously it's moving over, but that's because we have some scroll content here with the scroll bar. So yeah, moving down to the title, what we are going to do now is add a color. This color is going to be the dark color. And the font weight is going to be 700. Now I'm going to select the main title. And the font size here is going to be 3 rem. It's going to make it slightly larger. The next thing that I want to add is a line height of 5.8 rem. Then what I'll do here is add a letter spacing. And I'll just do negative 0.05 m. Again, m units are going to be relative to the font size of this item or whatever item you're using the m on. And yeah, so aside from that, the next thing that I want to do now is select the accent color class for the span. And here we are just going to add a color, not column, and I'm not really trying to save anything. So let me just close that. So color. And here it's going to be the accent color variable. Then what I want to do is add, again, the same letter spacing here. So I'm just going to copy this. And I keep messing it up. So this one should be letter spacing. And I copied it from the previous one. So let me just make sure that I update it. So right here. So the letter spacing here is going to be basically, actually this one I want it to be 0.1 instead. 0.01, I should say. So yeah, that looks good so far. Maybe here, I'm going to make the font weight 500 so that it's lighter. That looks better. Looks more like the original. And what else? So the next thing that I'm going to do is select the text content paragraph. And here I'm going to give this a font weight of 400. Actually, I don't need this because by default, it's going to be 400 already, unless you change it. So for the line height here, I'm going to do 3 rem. Then the letter spacing is going to be 0.005 m. And then I'm going to add additional separation top and bottom by using a margin block. 2.2 rem, like so. So now things are starting to come together. Then the next thing that I want to do, let's see, the button group. So the button group here is going to have a margin to the top here of 5 rem for separation, 0 left and right, and then 1 rem towards the bottom. Display here is going to be a flex. Then I want to align my items to the center just so that they line up here. Then I also want to justify the content to the center. And finally, I'm going to add a gap, which is going to be 2.4 rem. And since we are not going to have a column gap, I think we can just do a row gap. Well, I should say we are not going to have a row gap. We want a column gap instead. I'm always getting those two mixed up. So the next step is to target the buttons individually. So first we are going to start with some general button styles. And here I'm going to do a display of inline block. And then I'm going to text align the center. I'm going to set the background color to be the accent color. Then I'm going to set the color itself to be white, which is going to be the light color. I'm going to add a padding all around of 1.4 rem. Then the border is going to be 1 pixel, solid, and then transparent. And I'll show you guys why I'm doing this in a little bit. So for the border radius, I'm going to make this slightly round at 0.8 pixels. Well, not pixels, but rem. And since we are going to be adding a hover effect to transition the background color, let's just go ahead and add that in right now. Background color over 0.25 seconds. So now I can target the hero button. So specifically the button that is inside of the hero. And then I can just go ahead, for example, here and get rid of the padding. And that's because these are general styles for all the buttons that we are going to have. Well, not the padding, but adjust the font size. 1.2 rem, like so. The one thing that I want to do now is go ahead and add in the hover effect for it. So what I'll do here is select the button that is not, and then on hover here, and then we're going to be doing the same thing on focus. So here that is not the button that is not the button that has the class of button transparent. So that means that it's going to apply to every button except for this one. And what I want to do here is just change the background color. And I'm going to make this light. Then I'm going to change the color of the text to the accent color. And this is where the border color is going to come into play. So border color, here also the accent color. And as you can see, nothing is happening right now. So let me just double check that I didn't mess something up. So right here, so button, not button, transparent, hover and focus. So this should be working. Let me just get rid of this for a second. Let me just make sure that I didn't mess anything up. So button, not transparent on hover. So if we go back to the original demo, it's working just fine here. So what's going on? It's usually the smallest mistakes. So let me just get rid of this really quickly. Right there. So it's not working for some reason. So button, hover. Oh, well, there's the small mistake. So when I duplicated this down below, I forgot to add in the comma. So now it should be working just fine. Yeah, that's usually how it goes. Sometimes it's like the smallest mistakes that are going to mess you up. But anyways, I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, you can do things to avoid it, but every now and then that's just something that's going to happen. And then you waste like a few minutes trying to find this one small mistake. But anyways, back to this. Now let's style up the button transparent. And here, the background color is going to be transparent. Then I'm going to do here a display of flex, like so. Align my items to the center inside of this container. And what I want to do here is also add a color that is going to be the dark color. So it's not going to apply to this button, and the main reason for that is because this button is only going to have an icon, but the other transparent buttons are also going to have text. So that's why I'm adding a color here. And now we can just put this back on. So let's say not, and then we can specify here the transparent button like so. We'll do the same thing on focus. So now if we hover over the other button, see that nothing really happens. So the next thing that I'm going to do now is basically get rid of all the padding this button has. So hero. So this one is the one that I was trying to get rid of earlier. So button transparent, we can get rid of the padding here by setting it to 0. So that's much better. So now I'm going to go ahead and style the play icon image. And this image is going to have a width of 5 rem, then a border radius of 50%. And I'm also going to add a margin right. And this will be 1.2 rem, I should say. Then I'm also going to add a box shadow. And this box shadow is going to be 0 on the X, 0.5 rem on the Y, and then for the blur, we can do 2 rem. That's going to be an RGBA, 0, 0, 0. Then the final value is going to be 0.08. Let's make sure we specify RGBA. So now we get the box shadow there, here. And something that I forgot to add was the text. So see if we can find it right here. So order, just put it underneath, order process. Like right there. So it looks, well, obviously it looks exactly the same like right here. Well, this is like, oh, that's because this one has a letter spacing, but it's not really important for this, so let's not even worry about that. So the next thing that I'm going to do now is select the button transparent image. So button transparent, and then the image inside of it. And I'm going to add a transition, which is going to be on the transform over 0.25 seconds, ease in, out. And then what we are going to do is just add a hover effect to just like scale it slightly, like here. So again, button transparent. On hover, let's target the image. We will do the same thing on focus. Let's not forget the comma this time around. And here we are just going to use a transform scale. And we will do this, let's just do 1.1. And that looks pretty good. And yeah, so that's going to be it for this particular portion of the hero. So the next thing that we are going to do is target the what we serve section, which is going to be this one right here. So yeah, let's take care of that right now. So the what we serve section is only going to be mostly composed of this title right here, as well as some cards. And to take care of that, we'll jump back inside of the index.html, and we're going to start here by specifying that we want to use another section element. We are going to apply a class of what we serve. And I'm also going to apply a class of section for general section styles. So that's not something that I added to the previous section, did I? No, it was the hero, so we didn't need it for the hero. So yeah, anyways, back to this. In here, we are going to continue with the same thing of using the container element or a container class applied to a div element. And here we are going to group together the section title. So for this, I'm going to apply a class of section metadata. And this is going to be a span that has the class of section tagline. And we can say what we serve. Then underneath, I'm going to add an h2. This h2 is going to have the class of title as well as a class of section title. And then I'm just going to grab the text, paste it in here like so. And that's everything we need for the section metadata. So underneath of here, I'm going to add a div. This div is going to have a class of card group. And I'm also going to reuse the dgrid class here. Like so. So then I'm going to have individual cards. We are going to have 3 of them. So I'm going to have a div. This div is going to have a class of card. And inside of this card, I'm going to have a header. So this header is going to have the class of card header. And it's going to have an image. This image is going to be inside of the images folder. Actually, assets folder, images folder. And then the image that we want is the free shipping icon. And then we can say here free shipping icon. Then underneath, we are going to have another wrapper div, and this div is going to have the class of card body. Like so. And then here we can just have an h3. Again, we will use the class of title, and then an additional class of card title. Say free shipping. And then underneath of that, I'm going to use a p tag, and then again, just paste in the text. Like so. So now that we have the structure for a card, it's as simple as just copying this one and pasting it down below as many times as you need. In this situation, it's only 2 more times. Now what we are going to do is change the images. Third one is secure checkout. And then we can just change the title here as well. So for the last one, we can just say secure checkout. For the second one, we can say 15 days money actually returns. And then for the text itself, just gonna paste this in. And as I mentioned before, I'm going to be including all the text just in case that you want to use the same one, or you can just use some lorem if you wanted to. It doesn't really matter though. But yeah, now that we have the basic structure for this section, we can just jump back into the not index.html, but the styles.css, and we can start styling this. So the first thing that we are going to do is target the what we serve section, and I'm going to be applying a padding top here. And you know what? Let's get rid of this class altogether. I don't think I'm going to use it anymore because all the sections, they're not going to have the same amount of padding. They're going to have different ones. So here I can just use a padding to the top of 10 rem and 10 rem to the bottom, and then 0 left and right. So for the background color, I'm going to use the section background color variable that we created before. Then for the section metadata, I'm going to text align to the center. The section tag line, I'm going to do a display of inline block. And this is just going to allow us to use things like margins to the top and bottom. Then for the font weight, I'm going to do 500. For the color, I'm going to do the accent color. And then I'm going to do a line height of 2.4 rem. And finally, some margin bottom to create separation of 0.8 rem, like so. So we can go ahead now and select the section title. And the font size here is going to be 2.4 rem. The line height here is going to be, let's do 4.4 rem. And then finally, I'm going to add some additional separation towards the bottom by adding a margin bottom of 2.2 rem, like so. So let's go ahead now and select the card group. So for the card group, I'm going to apply a margin top and bottom for separation. Well, not a margin top and bottom, but here 7 rem to the top, 0 to the left and right, and then 2 rem to the bottom. So now let me also add a gap here. So the gap is going to be 2 rem. Remember, we can use the gap property here just because we have the class of the grid, which is making this a grid container. So underneath of here, I'm going to now select the card individually, and I'm going to apply a padding of 3 rem top and bottom, and 2.2 rem left and right. For the background color, I'm going to make it white. So I'm going to use the light color variable. And then for the border radius, we can make this 1.2 rem, just to give it some rounded corners. So let's now select the header, the card header, I should say. And this is going to have a display of flex, like so. Now, what I'm going to do, as opposed to using align item center, justify content center, I'm going to use margins on the image inside of it to actually center the content where I want it. So to do so, I'm going to select the card group, actually not the card group, but the card header, and then the image inside of it. And what I'm going to do here is give a height of 6 rem. And now what I can do to center this image, all I can do is 0 top and bottom for the margin, and then auto, and it's going to move it towards the middle here. So let's go ahead now and select the card body. So card body, text align to the center like so. And I'm going to add some separation with some margin towards the top of 6 rem, then 0 left and right, and 2 rem towards the bottom. Then I'm going to select the card title. And here I'm going to add a font size of 1.8 rem. Then I'm going to do a line height of 3.3 rem. The font weight, going to make it slightly bolder at 600, and then a margin bottom of 1.5 rem for separation. And we're almost there. So the last thing that I'm going to do is just add a line height here for this text. So here I can just say card body and then target the P tag. And I'm going to apply a line height, which is going to be 2.5 rem like so. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that's pretty much it for this particular section that we have here. And yeah, so the next section that we are going to work on is going to be this one. So that's going to be for the why choose us. So yeah, let's get right to it. So let's go back inside of the index.html. Let's find the comment. I choose us. And now we can just start. So luckily for us, this is a rather short section. So just like we did before, we are going to start by using the section element. We are going to apply a class of why choose us, just like so. And now we are going to have a div that has the class of why choose us container, as well as the class of container and the grid, like so. And here we are going to basically do some of the similar thing to what we did with the hero. So we are going to have an image content group. And then the image is going to be inside of the images, well, inside of the assets, images, and this one is going to be feet, like so. And then underneath, we are going to have a text content group. And then we can just go ahead and add in the section metadata. So we can just copy it from here and we can paste it in here like so. And then we can just change the text here to why choose us. And then as far as the text, we can just change it to this text right here. And we're also going to be adding a p tag inside of here. And the text for this is going to be this one. Again, you can use any text you want. This is only a placeholder. And then finally, underneath of this section metadata wrapper that I have, what I'm going to do is add an anchor tag. And this anchor tag is going to have the class of button, which is going to have our general styles for the buttons. And then we can just say explore now. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to this section. As you can see, since we are reusing certain components, most of the styles here are already done for us. So we just have to kind of just like adjust them a little bit. Yeah, let's go back inside of the styles.css so that we can make it look even better. And yeah, after this, we only have one more section, well, two more sections and then the footer. And then we can move on to making this project responsive. So to start here, I'm going to select the why choose us section, and I'm going to be applying a padding top and bottom of 5 rem and 0 left and right. So it's going to give us some additional spacing on the top and the bottom. Now here I'm going to, let's see. Actually, you know what? I'm going to be using these section classes just, well, technically I don't need a section. I can just use these section elements. So I can say section, not, and then hero, since the hero is a section. And then the text content group inside of it, I can just add a margin here towards the top of 8 rem, 0 left and right, and then 2 towards the bottom. So that's going to create some additional separation here, as you just saw. And now I can come down here and target the Y choose as section tagline. And here I can just go ahead and change the color to this green, which is 0, 3A, and then I can do 66B, like so. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to that, except for the button right here. So let's target that as well. So here we can just say section once more, not, and then hero, and then the button. So it's going to basically apply it to every single button except for the ones inside of the hero. And then here I can just add a margin top. Well, I'm just going to stick to using these shorthand. So margin top, 0 left and right, and 2 rem towards the bottom. So now we get the separation that we want. And yeah, like I said, it's a rather short section. The other one is pretty short as well. Well, CSS wise, as far as the HTML markup, there's going to be basically almost about the same. So let's go back in here and we can actually reuse everything we used here. So let's just grab this, paste it in here, and let's make some changes. So as opposed to why choose us, we can change this to home delivery. Then here we can change this to home delivery container. The rest is going to remain the same. Here we can just switch this image to feet 2. And for the text here, we can change this one to home delivery. Then for the text, I'm going to use this. And well, this can just stay the same. It doesn't really matter. And then the button also is going to stay the same. And as you can see, it's already showing up. Since we are using components, again, everything here is just going to already look good. Obviously, we still have to add some minor styles. So let's go back in here. And inside of the home delivery comment, what we are going to do is select the home delivery section. So home delivery, and the padding here towards the top is going to be 0, 0 left and right, and then 10 rem towards the bottom. So that's going to get rid of the spacing on the top and then add some extra one to the bottom. Then the other thing that I want to change here is the color of the tagline. Since we already did this here, we can just grab it from here, paste it here, and just edit the section. So home delivery, section tagline, and now we can just go ahead and switch the color. So this one is going to be a yellow, F9, BA, and then 45. Just like so. So everything's starting to look pretty good so far. As far as the CSS, the next section, this one right here, is still going to be pretty rather short since we are going to keep reusing some of the components that we already styled. So going back inside of the index.html, we can go ahead and wrap that up pretty quickly. So yeah, so for this section, we are going to add another section. And this one we can say download our app. Then the same deal here, download our app container, and then here the grid, like so. So now we are going to add a div that has the class of image content group like we did before. So image content group like so. And then I'm just going to go ahead and add the image. So again, assets folder, images folder, and then we can just grab the image, phone app image. And then we can say phone app. Then what we are going to do, well, we don't need anything else there. So if we scroll down, we should already see the image. So underneath, we are going to reuse the text content group. And we can just go ahead and again, just copy the section metadata. So we can just afford to be a little bit lazy here. I didn't copy the whole thing. So let's try that again. Right there. So we can just go ahead and slightly modify this. So we can change this to download our app. And now we can go ahead and just grab the text. And then here, we'll just add some more dummy text like so. And if we go ahead and check that out, it looks pretty good already. The only difference is that here we are going to have another button group. And it also has the scaling as well. So as far as the section metadata, that's going to be all. Let's just go ahead and go underneath of this section metadata and let's add a div that has the class of button group like so. So the first anchor tag here is going to have the class of button as well as button transparent. And we can just leave that empty. And then we are going to be placing an image. This image is going to be inside of the image assets folder, images folder. Well, you already know the drill. And this one is going to be having the name of Apple Store. So we can say here, App Store logo. And for the other one, well, we still need to add some text as well. So App Store. So for the other one, let's just copy it as well. And this one is going to be for the Play Store. Here we can say Play Store logo. And again, that's pretty much everything that we need for this section. As you can see, like most of the styles are already done for us, and that's the beauty of basically reusing some of the components that you already built. So it's less work. So back in here, inside of the styles.css, finally said it right for the first time after I kept making the mistake of saying it back inside of index.html. So yeah, now let's select the download our app section. And here we are going to add some padding top and bottom of 5 rem and then 0 left and right. I'm also going to be adding a background color here, which is going to be the section background color. And now I want to center this image. So I'm going to select the image that is inside of the download our app container and image content group right here because we want to be more specific. And now we can just use 0 top and bottom and margin of auto left and right. And that's going to center it in the middle of this container. So for the buttons, we are going to do, basically, we're going to get rid of the margins that they have, that the button group has by default. So download our app, and then button group, we're going to say that it has a margin of 0, just like so. So now let's style this even further. So I'm going to select, again, download our app button, just to be more specific, because if we're not, it's just going to override the styles for all the other buttons. So here we can do a display of flex. Then I want to align my items to the center, not baseline. Then the font size here is going to be 1.4 rem. Well, it's already 1.4 rem because it's inheriting it from the body. I just keep forgetting. So for the gap, we are going to add some separation here. Let's just set the column gap instead, as opposed to the shorthand and using it all around when we don't really need it. And I'm also going to add a padding top and bottom. So here I can just add a padding 1 rem, and let's make sure that we specify it's a padding block. Then what we can do is say that the border, well, here we don't have it, so we can say the border is 1 pixel solid RGBA, and then here we'll just use the black, then we'll just use 0.1, just like so. And yeah, it looks pretty good. So that's everything that we need for that. So the next step is just to work on the footer, and the footer itself, to be honest, is pretty straightforward. I mean, there's quite a bit of CSS compared to the rest of it, but it's nothing out of this world. So same thing with the HTML. So let's go back inside of the index.html, and yeah, let's make this, well, not necessarily look better, but let's just add in the content that we need. So for the footer, we are going to be using the footer element, and here we'll apply the class of footer. Well, in fact, let's just make this more unique, since we are only going to have this one type of footer, and use an ID instead. So here we are going to reuse the container class, and then we are going to basically wrap the entire footer into a grid container, and I'm going to call this one grid footer top data. So footer top data. And I'm also going to make this a grid container, like so. So here I'm going to, if we go back to the finished product, we have this logo image and some information about the company. And yeah, what we can do here is just wrap this all together. So company data, we're going to be using an anchor tag here. And in fact, what we can do is scroll all the way back to the top and just grab this anchor tag from the logo, and we can just go ahead and paste it in here, like so. And yeah, we don't really need to do anything here. Well, we can get rid of this if we wanted to, but I'll just leave it as it is. It doesn't really matter. And then we can just add a p tag for the company description. So that's exactly what I'm going to add, a class, company description. And here we can just grab it from here. Let's see. So let's just add that in, like so. And yeah, that's pretty much for that wrapper. Now I'm going to have several other wrappers. So that's going to be for each group here that we have. And I'm going to call that footer group, like so. And this group is going to consist of an H6 that has the class of title, and an additional class of footer title for footer specific title styles. Here, you can just call this company, and then we can just use the list item, and then list link. You can do all this like a lot faster by using Emmet, but since my videos are usually more geared towards like beginners or people who might not I use this a lot. I just tend to avoid it. So yeah, so for this one, I'm going to, well, before I do any text, I'm going to duplicate this down below as many times as needed. So for this one, I had 4. The first one is going to be about us. The second one, blog, then products, and then we can do careers. Just like so. So now that we have the basic structure for each footer group, we're going to copy this one, paste it down below 2 more times because we had 1, 2, 3, and then we had the footer bottom portion. So for the sake of speeding things up, I'm only going to just grab this title. The rest I'm just gonna leave it alone. And this is actually from a footer component that I have, so I actually didn't even change the data inside of it at all. But like I said, this is only for demo purposes. The text inside of it doesn't really matter. So that looks better already. What else? So yeah, now what we need to do is add the footer bottom portion. And we also have a really faint here, horizontal rule. And here, this is the closing div for the footer top data. So underneath of here, I'm going to add a horizontal rule and just add a class of let's just call it horizontal line. And this is actually supposed to be bad practice, like using a horizontal rule for just creating that separating line. But I mean, you could use a div if you wanted to. For this demo, I'm just going to use the horizontal rule. And then for this wrapper, I'm going to call it footer bottom data, like so. And this is where the copyright data is going to go. So I'm going to use a span for this, copyright information, like so. And then we can just grab the text. So the ampersand copy here is just going to generate the little copyright symbol. And then I have to wrap these two together right here. So what I'm going to do is use another div here and just call this one legal information. And then I can just add 2 different anchor tags. So this is going to be for terms and conditions. And the second one is going to be for the privacy policy. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it. We are finished with the HTML portion of this project, so we can just go ahead and close that. We can do the same thing for the JS, and now we solely just focus on the CSS because that's the only thing left. We need to work on the footer and then the rest of the media queries. So for the footer here, we are going to start by selecting the footer element. Well, remember, we switched this to an ID. And here we are going to text the line to the center. We are going to add a padding that is going to be 5 rem towards the top, 0 towards the left and right, and then 3 rem towards the bottom. Now I'm going to select the company data. And this is going to have a margin block of 2 rem, and that's going to apply margin top and bottom. Then for the logo here, we can do a display of inline block like so. Then I'm going to select the company description. And what I'll do here is give this a margin top of 2.5 rem, 0 left and right, and 1 towards the bottom. just for additional separation. And the image is not really centered here, so logo right here, we can do a margin 0 of top and bottom and then auto. And let's see, so it's not centering it. Let me just quickly check that out here in the inspector. Oh, that's because of the original margin that we have. So what we can do instead is target this one specifically. So the footer logo. And then what we can do here is say that, oh no, it's not in the image. It's not for the image, I should say. So what we can do is, well, let me go ahead and make this smaller. We can close this. Well, before I said there was no big deal, but it would have been solved if I just added it to the logo here, but instead I did it towards the image. So the thing that we can do here is just, let's avoid having to write some additional CSS and let's just find the logo. So here, logo image, instead, we can just say that the logo will have the margin instead. So is the right. So now we have no issues here. Let's scroll all the way back towards the bottom. And yeah, so that's fine right there. Margin 0 and then top and bottom. And yeah, so what's next? Let's play around with the titles. So footer title. Let me just add this under. And we also need one more thing here, which is going to be the line height of 3 rem. So for the title here, what I'm going to do is add a font size of 1.8 rem. Then the font weight is going to be 600. And the line height is going to be 2. And that's starting to come together. So now I'm going to select the footer group. Actually, I should have done this on top because it comes before the title. So footer group, like so. And for the footer group, I'm going to add some separation here. So 3 rem top and bottom, 0 left and right, and 1 rem towards the bottom. Then for the list itself, so footer list, well, footer group list, I'm going to inherit the margin, like so. And yeah, now for the footer group link, remember the reason why we are being more specific here is because we are using the list and link that we used before. So if we were just to select them by themselves, then that just means that we are going to override certain things from other places, which is not what we want to do. And this one we can make it 4. Now for the horizontal rule, so horizontal line, here the margin towards the top and bottom is going to be 3 rem. And let me just use margin block here instead. Then what I want to do here is get rid of the border altogether since it uses border by saying none. And now I'm only just going to apply a border top instead. 1 pixel, solid, RGBA, and then I can do 0.05. And now we get the really faint line. And yeah, the next thing is going to be the copyright information. And here we can just add the line height, 2.4 rem. And then I'm going to target the legal information. The font weight here is going to be 500. Margin is going to be 0, top and bottom, 1.2 rem, left and right. And then I'm going to be adding a hover effect here. So the transition is going to be on the color over 0.5 seconds. And let's make sure that we specify that we want these styles on the links, not the container. So now we can go ahead and add the hover effect. So legal information A on hover. We will do the same thing on focus. Should be focus, like so. And then the color that we are going to be using is the accent color, like so. And that's pretty much all there is to for the mobile version of this project. Now we are going to add media queries to make this fully responsive. So let's get right to it. This one is going to be for 768 pixels. So we'll say add media, screen, then and. What we can do now is say min width, (768) pixels, like so. And the first thing that I want to do here is target the body. And I'm going to increase the font size here to 1.6 rem. Well, obviously we're not going to be able to see much here. So let me just make it so that it's large enough so that we're able to. And I'm also going to make this smaller, like so. So then I'm going to target the hero. And the hero is now going to get a padding to the top of 8 rem, 0 left and right, and then 12 rem towards the bottom. Then I'm going to select the container. And the container is going to have a max width of 72 rem, like so. I'm going to select the tagline. And the tagline is going to, let's say, font size of 1.6 rem as well. Just going to make it slightly larger. And actually, I think it's just cleaner if I say inherit. It should still be the same. Yep. Then I'm going to select the main title. And I'm going to say that the font size here is going to be 3.8 rem, just to make it a little bit larger. Then for the button group, I'm going to change the justify content to flex start actually. Just so this starts here at the left edge. Then the next thing that I'm going to select is the button. So button. And here the width is going to be 18 rem. Then the padding is going to be 1.8 rem, top and bottom, and 2 rem left and right. Now for the hero button, so that we only apply these styles to the buttons inside of the hero, the font size here, we can say inherit as well. So that's going to make it slightly larger. So it's going to inherit it from the parent, in this case, the body. Then I'm going to select the button transparent. So hero button transparent. And the width here, I'm going to make it 100%, like so. Then for the play icon image, I'm going to make this, let's do 7 rem, like so. What else? So we still have the text content group as well as section metadata. So let's take care of that. Text on content group and then section metadata. And here we can just change the text align from center to left. Then I'm going to select the what we serve section, and then I'm going to select the section metadata here because I still want the metadata for this to be center. So text align center, like so. Then for the section title, what I'm going to do here is set the font size to be 3.2 rem. The next thing that I'm going to select is the card group. And the card group is going to have a grid template columns, which is going to be repeated. So we're going to have 3, and they're going to be 1 fraction each. So now they're going to be on the same column right here. I'm also going to be adding here a gap for additional spacing. So the gap is going to be column gap 2.4 rem, like so. Now I'm going to select these sections, not hero, and then the text content group, and then the margin top is going to be 10 rem, 0 left and right, and then 2 rem towards the bottom. Then I'm going to do the same thing here, but I'm going to change it slightly. So this one is going to be for the download our app. So let me just delete this portion. And now I can say download our app, and then the text content group here. What I want to do is just set the margin top here, margin top. And then I'm going to set it to 8 rem, and I'm going to make it important just so that I can override it. So that's better. The last thing that I'm going to do here for this breakpoint is going to be adjusting the footer bottom data, since we have enough room now. So footer bottom. Let me see, footer. Let me see. See, what's the index right here? Footer bottom data. Oh, so I gotta mess it up there. So it should have been footer bottom data, like so. No spaces. So footer, let me close this. So footer bottom data. And what I want to do here is do a display of flex, because we now want to display side by side. And I want to align my items to the center and then justify the content space between for separation, like so. And the font size here, I'm going to make it smaller again. So 1.4 rem. And that's already looking a lot better. So our next breakpoint, the layout here is going to change a little bit more, and we're going to finally display the entire navigation. So let me just make this slightly larger. And at this point, this is how it's supposed to be looking. So let's go back and take care of that right now. So what I'll do is just copy this portion right here so that I don't have to type everything again. Let's make sure we close that. And the breakpoint that we want to add in is going to be for 992 pixels. And then here, what I'm going to do again is just select the container. The container is going to have a max width that we are going to increase to 96 rem. Then I'm going to select the nav bar, and I'm going to set the flex wrap to no wrap, like so. And let me make this smaller just so that it's not overlapping like that. Then what I'm going to do is select the collapsible, well, first menu toggler. Here we can just get rid of this, display none, like so. And now we can select the collapsible menu. So the flex direction here is now going to row as opposed to a column. As far as the max height, we are going to set that back to initial, and we want to make it important just because of the JavaScript that we added before. We will do the same thing for the overflow. So now we want it to also be always visible. And let's not forget that this should be the overflow, like so. And then as far as the transition, we can set this back to none. Then what I'm going to do is select the collapsible menu list. So the list that is a direct child, because I don't want to apply the following styles to every single list. So the flex direction here is going to be a row, because initially we had it as a column. The margin, top and bottom 0, auto left and right, and that's going to center it here in the middle of whatever space is left. Then I'm going to, again, select the collapsible menu, and then the list item inside of it. And this list item is going to have a margin top of 0 and bottom as well, and then 1.6 rem towards the left and right. And that's already starting to look a lot better. Now I'm going to select the search box, and I'm going to get rid of that margin that I applied. So the margin top is going to be set to 0, like so. And here I'm going to select several things. So hero container, as well as the home delivery container, and then the download our app container. And that's because they will share the same styles, which is going to be a grid template columns that is going to be repeated twice at 1 fraction each. So that's going to give us our content side by side. Repeat 2 times 1 fraction each, like so. So now the layout's starting to look a lot better. Obviously, we still have to work on some things. So the other thing that I want to do here is, let me add the same gap. So column gap of 2.4 rem. Then I'm going to select the card, which are these right here. And the padding is going to be 4 rem towards the top and bottom, 2.6 rem towards the left and right. And then I'm going to add some margin all around of 1 rem, like so. So we are also going to now select the why choose us container. And what I want to do here is do something a little bit different, because for this container in the design, the 2 columns, they're not exactly the same size. This one is actually different. So what I'll do here, let me just make sure I line that up. So here I'm going to select the why choose us container. And what I'll do is just create 12 columns here. So grid template columns, 12, repeat, 12, 1 fraction each. And then I can just kind of position things exactly how I want it to be positioned. And here, I guess we'll just use the same gap, column gap, 2.4 rem. And then what we can do here is say that the why choose us image content group, why choose us, that image content group. This is going to be a little bit better if I just show you guys what's going on. So this is the section right here. Well, technically we don't have enough space. Let me just zoom out a little bit. Make this larger. So right here. So this is the section. If we show the grid here, now we can just position it exactly how we want it. So I want this to start at 1 and then basically span 7, so around here. And that's pretty simple. We can just specify a grid column, and then we can say span 7, like so. As you can see, now span 7. And then for the other one, we'll just span 5. So let me just duplicate this down below. I can say span 5 here, and now I can just change this to text content, like so. So that already looks a lot better. So let me just close that, and that's more of the look that we want. And here, as you can see, this one is actually reversed, but we're going to be taking care of that shortly. And the reason why this one is like this is because I'm using the order. So let's go back. And here, what I'm going to do now is select the home delivery. And then I'm going to select the image content group. And then the order here is going to be 1. So by default, order is going to be around 0. So if you give it a number of 1, it's just going to move it over. So it's going to go on this side, like this. The next one is going to be for the download our app. And this is going to get a padding top of 10 rem, same for the bottom, and then 0 left and right. Then as far as the footer, so footer, let's not forget that it's an ID. So the footer here is going to have a text align of left, and then a font size, which is going to be slightly smaller, like so. And then the footer top data, so footer top data, grid template columns, repeat 5 times, 1 fraction each, like so. And the reason why I did 5 as opposed to 4 is because I plan to span this portion too. So it's going to kind of make up for the remaining space that we have here empty. So here I can say company data. And I guess I'll just apply the same column gap here. 2.4 rem. So for the company data here, I can specify a grid column, and then I can say span 2, like so. So now that's perfect. And what's next? So the legal information. Legal information. I want to align this all the way to the left. So I'm going to say that the margin left is going to be set to auto, like so. And yeah, so the next breakpoint that we are going to target is going to be the 1200 pixel breakpoint. So again, we'll just copy this. And now we can just change the numbers like so. So for this breakpoint, we are going to do several different things, including some hover effects here on the cards. So let's go ahead, select the container once more, and we are going to make this even larger. So what we are going to do is set the max width to be 114 rem, like so. Now, as far as the main title, we are going to increase the font size even further to 4 point. Well, first let's specify that it's a font size. So here we can do 4.8 rem. Then the line height is going to be 8.8 rem. Now for the let's just say that the section, what we serve, so section not what we serve. And then the section title, the max width here is going to be 90%. And yeah, so after that, what I want to do is select the card group. So card group, max width 95 rem. The margin left is going to be auto. And then the margin right is going to be auto as well. Now I'm going to select the card itself. And this will get the position of relative since we are going to be using a pseudo element here for the hover effect. And then the C index, I'm going to place it at 1. And yeah, so that's looking good so far. So now I'm going to add in the before and after pseudo element. So card before and then card after. And these are just general styles, so they're both going to share in common. So the content to an empty string, position is absolute, and the top 0, left 0, and in the border radius is just going to be inherited from the parent, which is going to be the card. So now we are going to select them individually and apply the styles that we want. So here I'm going to start with the card before. And this is going to have a width. And for that, we will use the calc function. It will be 100% plus an extra 1.5 rem. Just so that it can make it the same height as this, width and height as this, and then slightly larger. So we're going to do the same thing for the height, like so. And now we can set the background color. This one, we can change it to the accent color. And it's already shown up on top. And then I want to change the transform origin. Transform origin. Where is it? So transform origin to be from the top left as opposed to the default, which is the center. And then the transition here, transition is going to be on the transform over 0.25 seconds, and then also the opacity over 0.25 seconds. And then for the C index, I'm going to send it to the back. So I'm going to do -2. And I'm now going to hide this by making the opacity 0. We will show it on hover later on. So the same deal now for the after, card after. So what I want to do here is set the C index to be -1. So this means that it's going to be still on top of this before. And the width here is going to be 100%. Well, we can just inherit from the parent. Same thing with the height. And then the background color, we can just set this to white. Or in fact, we can also inherit this. So now let's go ahead and add in the hover effect. So the hover effect is going to happen when we hover over the card. So card, unhover, and then we want to animate in the before pseudo element. So here we are going to transform, translate, and then 0.5 rem on the x coordinate, and then 0.5 rem on the y. And then we want to rotate by -3 degrees, like so. And then finally, we are going to set the opacity back to 1 so that we now see it. And now you see it right there, but it's actually showing on top. So let's see. So the before here has, well, let me see. Let's see, background color. Oh, so let me see. I believe this is because I didn't explicitly set a width and height here. So here for the height, if I do this, same thing here for the width. Yeah, now it shows up. So it just didn't have anything to inherit from before. So yeah, that's actually, so the accent color, it's actually too dark. So let me just make it lighter. I'm going to use a different color here, which is going to be FE. And then 6A, 6A, like so. So it looks slightly better. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this. Well, actually, no. We still have to adjust the width here for the company data. So company data. And here we can set a max width so that we still give it some room to get smaller if it has to, like so. And now we can move over to the final breakpoint. So we're not going to be able to see the changes here because we don't have enough screen real estate. But the final breakpoint is going to be at 1400 pixels. And yeah, so here we're just going to make the containers slightly larger once more. So the max width is going to be 132 rem. Now the main title is going to be 7.4 rem. And then again, the same deal here. So I'm going to select all these sections that are not the hero. And then I want to select the text content group. Let's make sure we get rid of this, like so. And now as far as the margin top here, we are going to do 20 rem, 0 left and right, and then 2 rem towards the bottom. And for the section tagline, we are going to increase the font size to 4 rem. So it's going to make it larger. What else? So you see, actually, no, that's way too big. So let's just do 1.8 rem instead. And what else? So for the section title, this is what I want to make the font size be for rem. And like I said, we're not going to see any changes now because we don't have the screen real estate, but if I make it bigger, now we should be able to see it. And let me just, actually, I'll just leave it like that. And then we can just keep switching back and forth. It doesn't really matter. So right there, what I'm going to do next is select the what we serve section title. So what we serve section title. And here the max width is going to be 50%, just to make it smaller, as you just saw right there, but we still have to center this. So let's go take care of that right now. And what we can do now is say that the margin towards the left, come on, margin left, auto, and then the margin right, auto as well. So it's going to bring it back to the center. Then what I'll do here is select the card group. And the padding is going to be 5 rem for the top, and then 2.8 rem towards the bottom. I mean to 5 rem top and bottom, and then 2.8 rem towards the left and right. And then the margin all around is going to be 2 rem, like so. Actually, that's not for the card group. This should be for the card. So for the card group, what I want to do is manipulate the max width instead. So the max width here is going to be 110 rem, like so. And we're almost there. So we just need a couple more things and we're done. So after the card, I'm going to target the download our app button. So that's going to be all the way down here. So download our app and then the button. So for the font size, I'm going to use 1.6 rem. Well, already specified it in the body earlier, so we don't have to do it again. But anyways, for the padding block, what I'm going to do here is do 1.8 rem. Then for the margin right, I will do 1.4 rem. And finally, the font weight, I'm going to make it bolder, so I'm going to do 600. And yeah, so that's pretty much it for this project. I hope that you guys found it useful. And if you did, make sure that you leave a comment down below, like the video, share it, and subscribe if you still haven't. So this is basically what the finished project looks like. I'll see you guys in the next one.